Hey guys, it's Troy. Got another pen that I picked up today, another vintage pen to add to my collection. Now, lately, I have been adding some desk sets to my collection. I don't know why, I just felt like it. But I've got three Esterbrook desk pens. I've got two Schaefers, one of which is a cartridge fed pen, and the other is a snorkel. And you saw that snorkel here just recently because I got it back from being restored just within the past week or so. Well, I found this one online. Obviously, it's a Parker, and it is a distinctive desk set by Parker. It's got the original box still with it. Yeah, the box is a little bit beat up, but in overall, I mean, it's not in horrible condition. So let's open it up, and I'll show you what we've got. This obviously was used. Somebody did have it at one time and used it. It came with a beautiful marble base, and that's good and heavy right there. Alright, so marble, and it's got a little plaque on it. It says, "Best of luck from the gang of 66. Now, the seller said that this was new in 1966, 2 years before I was even born. So it's got you know, the felt bottom, and it's got that metal section where this, the pen holder would go, and it is magnetic. And it holds very nicely just like that. And then you've got the pen itself, which I will get out of here, and it will slide in like that. So it was packed, you know, in that box in styrofoam, and that's what you got. Now, 1966, I'm assuming that is the year of manufacture of the pen because it was given and personalized in 1966. Now, I don't know what that means, the gang of 66, that's all it says. But one thing it does say here, I'll pull this off, and it says Parker 45. That's the only identification that I've got as to what the model might be. I'm assuming this is a Parker 45 and a desk pen. And if so, what I do know about Parker 45s, because I have one and my son has one, they are workhorse pens. They usually work very, very well. And as expected, like I would find on a Parker 45, it is an aerometric filler. And lo and behold, there it is. There is the aerometric filler. One thing I also found out about this particular aerometric filler is it does remove from the pen itself, just like you would have like a converter would go in. The aerometric converter would go in, and the sac still works. It does still suck up and hold water. I did try that. The other thing that I did was I took this pen and I flushed it out really well with water, and I kept getting some blue ink that was all crudted in there, so I went ahead and threw it in the ultrasonic cleaner and then flushed it out some more. So using some pen flush, ultrasonic cleaner, and another water flush afterwards, it cleaned up very nicely till it was flowing nice clear water, and it is a semi-hooded nib on this thing. So I have not inked this up yet, and I will here momentarily. And so let's go put that back in. You can still see a little bit of water there, and maybe I'll be able to show you the imprint a little bit on here. And there is actually some chalking still left on this, and you can tell that it's been used. You know, when you buy a vintage pen, 50s, 60s, there usually is some chalk writing that is on the barrel itself that is meant to be able to wear off, and this one, all it says is me. So this is mini me right here, apparently. But that's all I've got on that one. But you know, it's a sharp looking pen. I've often said the black and the gold is a very classy looking combination. I've always liked black and gold. So you got that nice little semi-hooded nib here, and you've got that nice gold band here, and then you've got the gold tip here at the end. And then of course you've got the gold trim on the base here, the gold trim here with the Parker logo, and then they did nicely putting in the gold plated little plaque. So let's go ahead and ink this sucker up, and let's see how she writes. Okay, for those of you who have never filled up an aerometric, it's not that far different from doing a lever filler, from doing a cartridge converter, using an ink converter. You basically stick it in, and you would squeeze. Basically, this is an ink sac, just like you would have in a lever filler pen, but what you do is you squeeze this metal bar, and that bar depresses that ink sac. You hear that? That means that there's some ink flow, or and you're aspirating out air. Let go, let it fill for a second. Usually do this 3, 4, maybe 5 times, depending upon how much of the suction that you hear. So I'm doing it a few extra times just for the sake of demonstration. I'm going to set that down. Alright, I'm going to wipe off the excess. Put the cap back, the barrel back on the pen. Put it in my holder. Now, just to let you know what I'm using, I am using a Noodler's ink. A lot of people flip out over the idea of putting Noodler's ink into vintage pens. I will tell you that I have used Noodler's Bad Black Moccasin in a bunch of vintage pens, lever fillers, and I've had zero problem with it, and I do like this particular black ink. This does behave fairly well, and I haven't run across any corrosive effects from it. So now let's do a writing sample. Alright, pulling out my new desk pen, and I'm assuming that the name or the model number is accurate, that it is a Parker 45. So let's roll with that. A Parker 45 desk pen, and let's call it 1966 vintage. So it's got the semi-hooded nib. This kind of writes more a fine to medium line. It's not medium, and it's a little bit better than fine, but this one actually is fairly smooth. Don't expect any line variation when you're using a semi-hooded nib at all. I mean, it's got the plastic resin kind of thing for the barrel. It's got probably a steel nib to it. I don't expect any flexibility out of some steel nibs. I expect it to be fairly rigid, though, especially being a semi-hooded nib. Some people might even call it a hooded. But I don't expect any line variation. But Noodler's Bad Moccasin. I really need to work on my handwriting. I don't do this to show off handwriting. I actually do this to show off the pen. So when I got this, like I said, I flushed it out really, really well, and I'm glad I did, because there was a lot of gunk in there that probably would have made it write horribly. Anytime you get a vintage pen, sometimes even when you get a brand new one, like the one I got yesterday from India, sometimes you just want to flush it out really, really well. But especially on a vintage pen, not knowing how well it was maintained or not, as the case might be, then you go ahead and you flush it out really, really well. And I knew that it was probably going to be still inked up. So just to let you know what I'm keeping on my desk, I've got that. Here's the that Sheaffer snorkel that I showed you just recently, and sitting over here also on my desk, I've got an Esterbrook. I still got the 8-ball on this, and I may yet buy a nice Sheaffer base for it. I know where I can get one. I got the Esterbrook 8-ball, according it matches the pen. It came with the pen as a set. And now I've got this nice little marble set for a Parker. So a couple of Sheaffers, some Esterbrooks, and now a Parker desk set are in my vintage fountain pen desk set collection.